Hello, welcome everybody to our session today. My name is Caio Calado. I am the program manager for the Reactor São Paulo in Brazil. I am really excited, super excited to be here today and to host this session called Women Listen, Learn, Share, and Hold My Hands. This is going to be like an interview with Gabriela Mayer. There are some hidden details on this title. We're going to talk about this in a moment, but I'm not going to be talking here too much. I'm here to listen to Gabriela. But before we start, I would like to share with you just a few guidelines for this event, okay? So this event is part of the International Women's Day created by the Reactors team. We would love to make this really interactive as possible. So please share your comments and questions in the chat at any time. We're going to try to answer some of the questions in the end of this session. And also, in the end of this event, I'm going to share a survey so you can answer or give your feedbacks for this event. We would really appreciate if you take the time, 1 or 2 minutes to answer the questions. But that's enough. Let's talk about this session. So this session is you're going to hear stories from someone from Brazil. You're going to learn a lot about our culture, background, and some of the really cool stories from women in Brazil. Here we're going to learn more about Gabriela's project. She's going to share some stories about how she empowered others. We're going to talk about her career. One of her projects called Elas por Elas, or her or she. I don't know, Gabriela, how I would translate this. Elas por Elas. She with she, they with they.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe, yeah, her with her. I don't
Her
know.
with her, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yes.
guess I would put it that way.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're going to talk about these really cool projects, and also we hope to inspire you, maybe to help you to create your project, or maybe to inspire you to help others like Gabriela does. And who knows, maybe create your podcast too. We're going to talk a lot about podcasts today.
Yeah.
How are you feeling today, Gabriela? Welcome to the show, to the session.
Thank you, Kaya. Thank you for inviting me. And I'm very nervous. I'm going to be honest. not only because uh, Not only because we are talking in English, that is not my native language, but also because I guess I'm better asking questions than answering them. But I'll try.
No, it's okay. Hold my hand. My hand is here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's do
Okay.
this, right? Yeah.
Oh, no,
The
the other
other
way.
side. Yeah, let's do this.
Okay, great. Now I feel
So,
better.
you feel better? Let's do it.
Yeah.
So, how do you introduce yourself to like a non-journalist person? Also, you have the podcast besides that, right? How do you introduce
Yeah.
your side project in your career to others?
So I work as a journalist. I live in Brazil. I'm 32 years old. I live in São Paulo. I was born here, and I've been living here my whole life, except for 6 months that I lived in the U.S. I work as a journalist for a major radio station in Brazil. It's one of the two biggest news station we have. We call ourselves all news station. So we talk about news all the time. It's 24/7. And I'm also a podcaster. I have two podcasts. One for the news station I work for. It's Her with Her, something like that. It's a weekly podcast that we talk about many subjects, only with women interviewees. And the other podcast is a personal project, an independent podcast that it's called Põe na Estante, or Put in Your Shelf, or something like that. It's about books. It's like a book club in a podcast. So each episode, I invite two guests to read the same book I did, and then we talk about the book. And I'm also the founder of Rádio Guarda-Chuva, one of four founders. It's like a network of only journalistic podcasts. It's the first one in Brazil that only connects journalistic programs. So we are all journalists talking about different things, each one with their own podcast. And I guess that's it. I have two brothers. I have a lovely mother, a very inspiring one. I have also a very nice father. My parents are divorced. I guess I have a dog that's so cute. I guess that's it.
Yeah, I have a dog. I used to have a dog. I don't have anymore. But yeah, I'm thinking in adopt one. Maybe someday. I need to get maybe a bigger place so he or she can feel more comfortable with. So you talk about the Guarda-Chuva podcast, which is like a
Yeah.
journalist new type of project, and also it's for like a new type of media with podcasts, but it's not really new, right? We always have broadcasts. I mean, broadcasts was one of the very first one. Um, how do you feel about like being a journalist on this new type of media, social media, or instant news, or medias like this, right? Podcasts. How do you feel about being journalist in this moment?
Well, I guess it's a very challenging moment for many reasons. The first one is that I think journalism, not only here in Brazil, but we are facing like a credibility crisis, and that's something we have to deal with. We have to think we have to think about solutions. We have to think about how can we get the audience closer? How can we make people understand that a Facebook post is not the same thing as a professional journalistic news? So I think it's very challenging working on a time that we have so many attacks. So there are many governments that do not like the media, many presidents that do not like the media. That's very important because people they are leaders and people follow what the leaders say. So sometimes people reproduce the attacks we suffer from bigger authorities. But also we have to face the challenge of having very everything very fast. So news comes so fast, the information so fast, everything gets old very fast, and that's a big challenge. So asking more focused on podcasts. I think podcasts are something new for Brazilians, although it's not new. We didn't have the habit of listening to podcasts, but it's challenging because normally podcasts are not daily. I mean, we have some daily podcasts, but normally they are weekly shows, or I don't know, Põe na Estante, for example, the one I make, the literary podcast, is I have one new episode every 2 weeks. So the chance of getting old is very big. So I guess the challenge is how you talk about something more in a way that does not get old and in a way that goes deeper. Because I can talk about something people already talked about 2 weeks ago. I have to go deeper, or I have to have a different perspective to bring to the table a new conversation or a new perspective on the same conversation. If I don't, people won't listen to what I'm saying. So um, I think I think maybe that's one of the I don't know, hard part of being a journalist in instant news era, and also on the radio where I am every day. Now I'm also on the news on TV. So I have a daily news program in the radio and a daily news program on TV. And it's also challenging because normally you have to say things in a way that doesn't get old to that have on internet, because everything I'm going to say, probably you have already read something or seen something. So what can I bring you that is new or there's different? So it's a lot of work.
Yeah, you need to be kind of update all the time, and yeah,
Yeah.
it's so many different sources, right? We
Yeah, and
listen.
and right now we are in the middle of a pandemic, and things do not stop happening. Sometimes we just needed, I don't know, one day with no news, nothing new happening, but there isn't a day with nothing new or nothing big happening, because you have outbreaks, you have discovers, you have, I don't know, political decisions or not decisions.
Yeah, updates on the politics and things like that changed a lot. And yeah, people,
Yes.
as I said, like we need to be careful with like what we're going to share. Is the perception of the audience as a whole. And yeah, let's talk a little bit about that and like what like this seems to be like a such big challenge and there's such a big responsibility. Why did you pick this career? Like, why did you pursue a career, or what make you say like, oh, I'm going to become like a journalist one day?
I'm not sure why I picked the career, but I'm sure why I kept on that.
Why is that?
Yeah, I think we picked a career very young, you know. And here in Brazil, we decide the entire career very early. I mean, we don't have like a basic course and then you choose this to specialize in something. Here we choose it very early, like in some other countries. So I was 17 and I had to choose what I was going to do for
Rest
the
of the
rest of
life.
my life. Yeah. So it was like no idea. Actually, I had an idea, but I was between going to the law school and going to journalism school. And I chose journalism school. And I was not so sure when I chose it, but I was sure for on the first time I did something on journalism. I wrote a story, I wrote a report. Every time I write a new one or I tell someone's story, I'm more sure that I chose the right thing. So I think I really, I know it sounds a little bit naive, but I really believe journalism can be a social changing tool. You know, I think journalism is very, very important for democracy, and I do think journalism amplifies some voices. I do not, sometimes people say, because we give voice to someone. I don't like this expression because I think everybody has a voice and we don't give voice to anyone. But there are some voices that are not often heard. And I think we can amplify these voices, you know, we can make it louder. So I think it's very important to change things.
Yeah, it seems to me that you have the tools and the resources to share stories, not to tell stories, to share stories, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's something also social media does very well. I think it's very important. I don't see social media as an enemy. When I said before, like about a Facebook post, I was just pointing that it's not the same. I mean, social media is something, and professional journalism is some other thing. But I do believe that social media is very important to amplify narratives, to amplify voices, and to I don't know, to give some democratic space for, I don't know, people to say whatever they want.
It's like open doors. I'm not going to say open doors, it's just like giving the mic to others. And you, as a journalist, help them to not only hold, but also spread the words, right?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, and also I think it's very important. When we are in journalism school, we talk about a lot about objectivity. Do you have this word in English? I guess being objective.
Goals. Yeah, main
No,
objective.
being objective, like being impartiality.
Yeah.
We talk about that a lot. And what I think is that there is no impartiality because we are people and we have our beliefs, we have our values, our personal values. So there's no total impartiality. So you can try to be objective, and that's our goal. That's our professional goal. But even when you choose someone to interview, you are making a choice. I mean, why I'm interviewing you and not her? Why am I'm interviewing this person, not the other person? So I think something that journalists, it's like calling me all the time, and I'm paying attention to that. Is that what are the choices I'm making? So why I choose to interview this person? What this person has to say that the other person hasn't, or why every time we talk about this subject we interview this person? Why can't we choose someone else? So I think the choices we make are very important. That's why I don't believe there's any kind of total impartiality, because all the time we are making choices, and the choice itself is partial.
Yeah, it feels to me they really care about the human side of the news. You feel the news and you care about the whoever you're going to interview. Is it like this? Do you feel like that more? Like it's a really humane profession? Listen, raise voice, share the voice.
I think it should be. I don't think it is all the time, but I think it should be all the time. I think it's very important to be human, because we are actually telling people's story, and we are also, even when we are telling something more cold. You know what I mean? For example, when we are talking about an economic uh, something on economics, or a political decision or something like that, if you don't see the human aspect, you are not going to tell people what it means to their lives. So there are many ways of being human, and I believe journalists should be human all the time, but I don't think it is. And I think some of the reasons it's not human all the time is because journalists, they get used to what they see and what they are doing, and we can't get used to things. I think we have to be I don't know the word exact in English, but I think we can get used. We can't see things as usual, as normal, as just one more day. We have to keep trying to be fresh, to have a fresh look.
We can go hours and hours on this.
Yeah,
um,
I guess.
uh, Glaucia, she's not here with us today, but one thing that Glaucia told me that what she admires on your profession and also you as a professional is that you have a really humane side of the professions. And this is something that me and Glaucia, we kind of talk about it. Like you're a really humane professional and you like to help others to spread the words and spread the news. Let's put it this way. Um, I would like to just step back or maybe step forward to one thing that we kind of touched but was really brief, and I guess we're going to focus more on this, which is it's about your podcasts, right? You have two really cool projects. One is the Elas which is more women focused, and there is also Põe na Estante, which in English, please correct me if I say it wrong, but it's just like put in a shelf, like
Yeah,
books in the shelf, right?
yeah,
As we were talking about the bookshelves that you have over there, you have so
yeah.
many books. I have just so few books.
You just chose the best ones.
Yeah, you're right. Let's talk about the book clubs or the sorry. Let's talk about the book clubs and the women's sorority. This word is for me it's kind of complicated. Sorority. Did I pronounce right? Yeah,
Yeah,
you get it
yes.
right.
Yeah,
So these are kind of two different topics, but they kind of like sharing stories also. One is about the book and the other one is about the women's stories, right?
yeah.
Why did you pick these topics and what would you like to achieve on these projects?
So I guess both of them are about amplifying narratives. Elas com Elas is a project that I started thinking about how often I had to ask, like, directly that I wanted to interview a woman. So normally when I was on the newsroom and we were writing a story and I had to ask for a source or to look for someone, an expert to talk about anything, when I used to call universities or any reference center, they would normally point or nominate a man to talk to me about this subject. It's very, very common. And I would ask directly, do you have a woman to talk about that? Or do you have a black man to talk about that? Do you have a black woman to talk about that? Because normally they would point or they would nominate a white man. And what I started realizing is that as we had every time the same kind of person, the same kind of expert, not the same kind because people are not equal. People are not the same. People are different. But what I mean is that we normally share some similar perspectives to people that are similar to us. So if I talk to a middle class white woman from Brazil, maybe I will share with her the same point of views about some things. But if I talk about, I don't know, a black woman from the suburb of São Paulo, maybe she has other perspectives and other life experiences that contribute with some other things, some other reflections. So what I started realizing is that as we had all the time the same kind of people talking about things in general, we had the same kind of perspectives. So I started Elas com Elas because I realized how many women were researching any kind of subjects, were working on any kind of things, were doing whatever, and they were normally not known. We didn't know they exist. So I wanted to talk to these women, to tell their stories and to tell what they are doing. Sometimes I don't talk to them about their personal stories. I talk to them about their expertise. So their knowledge, they share their knowledge. For example, we had an episode about technology and we were talking about that. How many women work with technology, how many men work in technology, how are the barriers they have to face or they have to overcome. And Põe na Estante, I think it's kind of the same thing. So bring different perspectives about the world, but in this particular program, we have we do that through a book. So it's very interesting because sometimes we read the same story, the same book, but we have totally different points of view about the same book because we have different repertoires, we have different backgrounds. So that's why we have different points of view about the book. So I think it's very interesting sharing reflections. And my goal normally, my personal goal with the shows and my goal as a producer, so what I think what makes me happy is when I leave the show or when people the audience write me to say, I had never thought about that. So this woman brought something or said something, and I had never thought about that before. That's my goal. So think about something you had never thought before. Or on the books, oh my God, I read the book and I had never realized that this character is, I don't know, sexist. I had never thought about that. And now I see that he's kind of sexist or something like that. I think that's what I try when I'm making the content.
There is a really cool citation from a biologist called Humberto Moturana. There is something that he says that everything that is said was said by someone. And when they say based on their point of view. If we don't have the same point of view, we are not going to see the same thing that this person is talking about. And what I think that is interesting and what I'm hearing from you is that you want to see these different point of views and you want to engage them to share the point of views. Is that right?
Yeah. And I think it makes the word much bigger when when you do that, because you realize that you live your word, but the word is not the same for everybody. I mean, we have a very unequal word. We have a very racist word. We have a very sexist word. We have a very homophobic word. So, I mean, people are not facing the same battles I am, you know? So I like to know what they are facing. I like to know what it's hard, what it's easy to them. I like to know what they are trying to do, what they do different from me. You know, I remember one day I was like preparing an episode about being a mother. How was it to be a mother and the decision of having a kid or not having a kid? So we were talking about motherhood, and when I choose the women that are on the show, I try to get diversity. So I try to get different points of view. And when I was asking about the questions I wanted to ask on the show, I asked, I remember later I felt so dumb and so naive, but at that point I hadn't realized yet. So I started asking myself or thinking about why would a black woman have a different point of view about motherhood than a white woman? And then when we were recording, we were talking about motherhood, and the black woman, that she was an African American woman, she said, I'm the first woman in my family that am really a mother for my kids, because my mother, she took care of other people's kids, and my grandmother, she took care of other people's kids. I'm the first one that really can take care of my own kids. And that was so touching to me. I had never thought about that, and that is so obvious. I mean, that is obvious, but I had never thought about that. So every time we discuss any subject, I get a different highlight. You know, I get a different point of view that makes me change something, or want to change something.
Maybe unlearn something.
Yeah, that's right. Maybe I'll learn something. I think we are on that moment right now, to have more questions and answers, to unlearn more than learn, maybe, you know.
Yeah. I mean, this we didn't talk about this, but Portuguese is a really male first language, right? And there are so many things in a language that is kind of hard to even deconstruct in others. For example, developers. Developers is a word for, I mean, any English speaker seems to mean that it's just like, oh, it's a bunch of developers. But what if we say the same thing in Portuguese? Would be the same?
No.
No. It's
Yeah.
tricky, right? And
Yeah.
that depends on who you are talking to. Like,
Yeah.
if it's a group of women, we need to say it's a group, it's a bunch of women developers. That's how a language is structured, right?
Yeah.
The Portuguese, and yeah, we always going to try to put the male first.
Yeah.
And
When we generalize anything, we generalize on the male.
yeah, it's hard because when we say something that is not really in a social way that people would say something, people they just like, wait a second. For example, in the tech space, especially in the communities that the React is kind of connected to. So I am kind of like an advocate for like a more neutral language. So instead of saying like developers, I can say like people who develop, which gives the same idea, right? Oh, people who develop must be developers. Yeah, it gives the same idea, has the same function, but it's more like inclusive, right?
Yeah.
I guess that the challenge is just to help people to maybe learn or maybe unlearn things. Do you feel this through your podcast, the Elas por Elas? Like you share many stories, right? I
Hmm.
was checking the numbers. You recorded like 90 podcasts
Episodes.
already. Yeah,
Yeah.
it has been the same since the beginning. How did the Elas por Elas changed over the time? How do you feel about sharing so many stories about this? Do you feel the same, like with all the stories that you listen to?
No, I do not. I definitely do not. And I think um, if you listen to the first episode, and if you listen to the episode number 93, I guess that was the one from today, you see the difference. You notice the difference because I don't know. I think I evolve together with the interviewees and with the interviews I make. Every time I talk to a woman, I think about something I had never thought before. And that's something that sometimes is very exhausting because you are all the time thinking about how you can change, how you can improve. And improve demands energy, you know. So getting better, I mean, as a society, demands energy. And I think maybe that's why it's so hard, because not everybody wants to make an effort, because I understand it's exhausting sometimes. But I try to keep my mind open to keep having, as I said in the beginning, the eye and the thoughts fresh, you know. So I keep seeing a new thing every time I talk to someone. I don't know if I answered the question.
Yeah, you're saying that you want to keep fresh, open in mind to listen to the stories or the people that you're kind of inviting to your podcast. As you said, like from today's episode comparing to your very first one, you changed a lot.
Yeah, I
Um,
think. I like to believe I did, but yeah,
why would you say that?
maybe no, because I think I did, but I don't know. Maybe I should ask people around me if they think I did.
I mean, everything is like a collection, right? See the books in the background that you have. Every interaction that we have, someone is like a book that we open, we write some things. It's a memory, right?
Yes.
Close it, put back in the shelf, go live our lives, and then we met again. Oh, let me open this book. Sometimes I forget, then we just open the books to compare, right? You have your notes, I
Yeah.
have my notes. And yeah, I guess that's life, right? You're just
Yeah.
getting to know every woman that you met in your show is like a book in your shelf, right?
Yeah. The other day I was saying that I like to think that my library is like my autobiography. So if you come here and you see what I read, what I want to read, you will learn a lot about me. And the other day I was saying that my autobiography is made by many other autobiographies. So I have many pieces of other women that crossed my life that I interviewed, or or I don't know, I told their stories, or I talked to them, not necessarily for the podcast. And I think all of them made me, you know, I collect something from them.
I guess you don't only talk, but you listen and absorb their stories
Yeah.
and learn with them. Um,
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit more about the technical parts. I mean, we're speaking in English. Maybe the audience that cannot understand the podcast or listen to the content itself. Can you introduce a little bit, like really quick intro about like how the Elas por Elas is produced? If someone would listen now, what they would listen to? I don't know. I mean, many of the audience, they don't speak Portuguese, so they're not going to understand. But can you just sum up for us, have like just a bigger picture about what it is, the podcast?
So, like I said, it's a weekly podcast, and it's conversation with other women. Before the pandemic, I would put a lot of women together, like two, three. Once I did like 6 interviews at the same time. It was a little bit chaotic, but it was fine. At the end, it was fine. So we would record everyone together talking about the same thing. Now, since the pandemic came, I started doing like different parts, different interviews that together have together give you a broader look or a broader view about something. So I divide this subject on some topics that I would say, I guess I'm going to interview her about this part of this subject. I'm going to interview another woman about that part. So I put like a puzzle together, you know, and um, you can find any kind of conversations there. So we've talked about women in science. We have more objective conversations and more subjective conversations. So sometimes the episodes are, for example, about women in science, or I don't know. Next week I'm going to do an episode about the 10 years of the Syrian war. So I mean, I've talked about women refugee in the pandemic. How is their lives? Or we have more subjective topics. For example, I have an episode about love. I have an episode about, I think it's the most heard episode at all. It's about the imposter syndrome, you know?
I
I don't
didn't.
know.
I do know. Yeah.
I don't know if you have the same expression in English, but it's
Yeah.
like
It's the
when you
same one.
feel you're able to do something, you are basically. And it's the most heard episode of all times. So I think it's that. Elas com Elas is the podcast from Band. It's my project, but I do it in Band News, the radio station I work for, and I do by myself. So I produce, I write a script, I ask the questions, I record the interviews, I edit, I do by myself.
Let's talk a little bit more about the other podcast that you have, which is the Põe na Estante, which, sorry, there is a motorcycle here. Um, what can you tell about this podcast? It's about story, right? It's a like put in the shelf. It's a kind of book club, as you said. But how can you introduce this to like a broader audience, especially like the ones that cannot understand the Portuguese part of it?
So it's a book club. Each episode, I invite two guests to read the same books I read, and we talk about the book. And when I edit, I add to the conversation some small pieces, small parts of the book. So I read it out loud, recording. So the person will have an idea how is the writing, not only our impressions about the book, but how is the writing, how things go on the book. And I divide Põe na Estante in seasons, and each season has a subject, has a theme. So right now, for example, the season that is on air is about classic books. So we are reading Brazilian and foreigners authors, classic books. So we are reading, for example, J.D. Salinger. We are reading Virginia Woolf. We are reading Machado de Assis. We're reading, I don't know, many authors that were very important for literature, Brazilian and foreign literature. And I had a season 2 was about women. So we just read books reading by women. The third one was about contemporary Brazilian literature. So all the authors were Brazilian contemporary authors, women and men. And I think that's it. And on the conversation, we talk about our impressions, what came, what we are taking from the book, what we got from the book, what we are taking with us.
So you have like two really cool podcasts with kind of different strategy. Both of them talked about stories, and you kind of produce both of them, right? You edit, you write the scripts and everything. How do you manage to do that? And to, I don't know, maybe break down this answer, like trying to inspire someone to, oh, I'm gonna do that too. Like, how can I think to start a podcast? How did you do when you started, and what tips would you give to someone that can start or would like to start a podcast?
So I think the tip number one that worked very well for me is listen to other podcasts, because you realize, you know, what people are doing. So I started, I was a heavy listener from podcasts before podcasts were very popular in Brazil, because when I went to the United States to spend the semester studying, it was 2010, and I had a teacher that used a lot of podcasts to help us to practice our listening, or I don't know, to practice English in general. So that's why I started listening to podcasts. And when I came back to Brazil, there were not a lot of options in Portuguese. So I started to, I don't know, to think about producing something, to do something by my own. And I think tip number one tip number one would be listen to podcasts, listen to what people are doing, different languages, different ways of using the audio, of telling a story. And tip number two, I would say you can try new things. You know, nowadays the smartphone recorder is normally very good. The sound is very good. The audio is good. It's a high quality audio. I mean, it's not like a professional recorder, but you can do good things with that. So if you have an idea, maybe you can try. You can do like a episode zero to see if that's what really you want to do, and you can try with your smartphone, and you have, like, for example, if you want to use songs, you have some free songs on internet you can use that are all how do you say that
Yeah, audio
you
free samples,
yeah, it's
music,
like
intro.
yeah, but it's like music that people do for you to use for free. You know, you don't have to pay rights. They are free. You have to, it's
Free
like a free
copyrights.
library. A few what?
Free copyrights or royalty
Yeah.
free.
That's copyright. That's what the word I was looking for. So you have many options available, and I would say anyone can make a podcast. That doesn't mean that anyone have to have a podcast. Because sometimes you have an idea for one episode, but it doesn't stand for a season, for example. So you have to think what you want to say, how you want to say it, and if you have the time and um, the energy, I would say, because it demands a lot of energy to keep doing it. So because it's very important for the audience, and to make the audience loyal, it's very important to be regular, you know, to have a regularity. So sometimes you can start, but you cannot keep doing. And it's okay if you start and then you decide to stop. But I'm just saying that's something you have to consider. I mean, your schedule, you know.
So I really like what you say. Like I was had that I had my head down because I was making some notes. I was making some notes on my computer, but then started to. I don't know you, but I like to write. Uh,
Me too.
um, so you share like two tips: listen to others, record. Also, I really love the idea. Like everyone can do it, but that doesn't mean that you need to do it.
Yeah.
What you can say, like from you have been creating this type of content for like many years now. As I said, like you recorded 90 episodes of Elas por Elas. There is also the Point Estante. Um, any curious story from these podcasts? Any stories? I mean, I'm sure you have so many. Like who just go there and listen to all of them, but any story that really make you think like, oh, like this really got me like thinking for a while.
Yeah, I guess. I think on the first episode from Elas com Elas, the first episode was about what is it to be a woman. That's the question of the episode, and of course, the idea was not to give a final answer, because I don't think there's a final answer, but the idea was putting different perspectives together to discuss that. What is it to be a woman for you? So there were very different women in the table, and we started talking. And in Elas com Elas, normally I ask the guests to introduce themselves. So there was this girl, she was like 20 something years old, and I asked her to introduce herself, and she said, "My name is blah. I'm a student. I don't know how many years old, and I'm not a feminist." And I thought it was very interesting that it was important to her to say in her opening that she was not a feminist. So in the middle of the conversation, I asked her, "Why did you say you are not a feminist? I mean, why is it important for you to say that?" And then she started to explain that actually she thinks that the feminist movement is very associated to middle class women and to white women and to white women demands. And well, I think we talked a lot about that, and it was very interesting because at the end we have realized that we all defended the same things, but we call it different
Differently.
names.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's something that I mean, it was the first episode, and I was already like, "Oh my god, I have to think about that." So it was very interesting.
Yeah. Oh, my audio was open. Sorry, I didn't want to cut you out. I
No,
just
no.
noticed. Yeah, complete like the differently one. Yeah, I remember when I realized about the importance of the word. I mean the differences and the nuances between equality and equity. Um,
Yes,
yeah, for many people they are the same, but they are not.
they are
Um,
not.
and we just learn this when we have conversations with others, right? When we learn things like, oh, I never thought about that in that perspective. Like recently, like last year, and I mean, I would say like the end of the year, I had a really long conversation with a group of people. I was actually recording a podcast, and then I said something, and then it was a really good friend. She just said like, "I'm sorry for the noise."
No, it's okay.
Motorcycles. We were recording a podcast, and then I said something, and then she just like cut it. Let's redo this. You should not talk like this. In Brazil, and especially in Portuguese, we have some shortcuts in the language. So I don't remember exactly what I said. I said like, "Oh, so this company it wants to create a new area. So they have this." In English, it won't make sense, but Gabriela is going to get an idea like o braço de inovação or the innovation arm, which we use like this braço or arms for create references to clusters, right? Like areas or different things. And then she said like, "Hey, Kai, you shouldn't say things like this. This is sort of like capacitismo." Now I don't know how to translate that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you have the word in English, but I guess it would be similar if I have to say.
Yeah, it's like when you say things but you don't consider the reality of others in these terms, like it's like you're decreasing someone's value because this person doesn't have like an arm, for example.
Yeah.
So for us in the society is something that is really, we just say it, but then we did never thought about that conversation that I had with her, like, stop it, let's redo this, like, you shouldn't say things like this, man. Let's redo it, let's rethink about that. And that's for me like really changed my perspective in terms of like using some terms. I started to reflect about this. The equity and the equality one was about like a book comic that was just like two kids trying to get the fruits in the tree, and it was just like 4 or 5 comics explaining the concept of like equality, equity, and the social justice, that which is really important. And
Yeah,
sometimes people they just don't think about that.
yeah,
Is it
exactly.
hard to teach people about that, or share these stories through your episodes in the podcast?
Well, I would say I do not teach people, but women that are there, they are the ones that teach people, because I'm not trying to teach anyone anything, but I'm trying to tell stories. And what I like to think about is that when other women are there telling their stories, we have a lot to learn. I mean, they can teach us a lot. That depends on our not only capacity but also availability to listen to what they're saying, you know. So you can listen to a whole episode and do not learn anything, but maybe you can listen to an episode and learn a lot of things. That depends on why are you listening, why you are listening, and what we are listening, and what's your availability to listen, you know. But what I think it's very hard to talk to people is that do not want to listen. Because you can have a conversation, so you can say the same thing to 5 people, and depending on each one's availability to listen to what we are saying, they're going to capture different things from what you're saying. So I guess that's my answer. That what I say is that it's very hard to talk to people that are not open to listen to what you're saying, or to anyone that is saying. And I think we live in a time that there's a lot of people that are not open to listen to what someone's saying. For example, the example you brought, you could just ignore what your friend said and keep using the expression in other environments, you know. But you chose to listen and to think about that and to say, whoa, really, maybe I can offend someone, or I can, I don't know, reduce, as you say, I don't know the word used, but reduce someone's value. And I don't want to do that, so I'm going to listen to what she's saying. But it's not all the time people are open to listen. So
Yeah, and like we need to kind of be open, right? To, oh, I'm sorry, like I am wrong. Let me unlearn this. Let me learn a new way to say things or like to share stories. And I guess that we do this by listen, as you said, like we need to
yeah,
listen others and yeah, talk to them
yeah.
or
And
listen to
I'm
stories.
not saying like, well, I'm the super listener, you know, this, I'm super open, and every time I'm, no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that that's something I think about, so I try to be open. But sometimes it's not very easy, because sometimes you find people, or you cross your life with people that that's challenging, that they have something to say, but maybe you're not prepared for some reason to listen to what they're saying. So what I mean is not that I'm, you know, a guru of listening. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that that's something that we have to pay attention to, otherwise we will just keep going.
Yeah, how can I say this? We every day we have like different, like our mood and actions can have actions or implications in others, and the others can have implications on us. We need to be open to understand how we are feeling today and how we can interact to others. Sometimes we do things that we don't want to do, or sometimes we do mistakes that we didn't pay attention to. And yeah, I guess the tip or the thing is we need to be open to listen, to be vulnerable, or like, oh, I'm sorry, like I didn't want to make this, I kind of made a mistake, let me change this, or let me redo this in another way. And be open to like make mistakes, but acknowledge that you made a mistake and try to repair.
Yeah,
Yeah,
totally
we're
agree.
living what?
Totally agree with you.
Yeah, we're living in really yes or no time, like or you're right or you're not right. But then people are forgetting that we're humans, right? We
Yeah.
made mistakes sometimes, and
Yeah. And there are a lot of gray areas, right?
yeah, and there, yeah, people should be more open to listen and yeah see what the others are doing and improve based on these examples and things like that. Um,
Yes.
So we're about like 55. We still have like 5 more minutes to go.
Okay.
Just to recap some of the things that we talked about it. That this was a really cool conversation. We kind of have a script, but then we started to go to different places. Um, so we started this kind of interview talking a little bit about Gabriela's career and how she got related to journalists. Then we talk a little bit more about the podcast that she does, the Elas por Elas. And we kind of talk kind of briefly about the Põe na Estante. Um, and now we were talking about the other things like the importance, I don't know, just long story short, just about listen and to see what the other is saying and pay attention to, just to be open to listen and open the mind for things like that. I wonder if you, for this particular month, considering the Elas por Elas project, what would be like a special message or reflection that you like to have or you like to share with the women's or anyone, right? Maybe men's to reflect about the Women's International Women's Day for this year.
Yeah, I would talk to men as well because I think we need men to change things, not because they're the ones that can change things, but because they are part of the world. They are part of the structure, the sexist structure that guides us nowadays. So we have to change everybody, everyone together. You know, we have to walk together. And what I would say is that there's something very important that I've learned doing Elas com Elas is that we can occupy very different spaces. We can be anywhere. We can do anything we want to do. And we can do that with respect. We can do that with compassion. We can do that with generosity. And we can do that with honesty. And I think we don't have to I think sometimes when March comes, we keep saying what's the right thing to say. We keep thinking about what's the right thing to say to women. We keep saying what's the right thing to do. And I would say there's no right answer, but I don't think it's a month only for celebrations, you know? I think it's a month for reflection. I think it's a month to remember that the battles we fight are everyday battle. So every day we are facing something because for me, for example, I cannot forget for 1 minute that I'm a woman, you know? And for a black woman in Brazil, she cannot forget for 1 minute that she's a black woman. So everything that makes us different for what's called universal, that's normally being a white man, makes us remembering what it is to be like that. I remember the other day, my brother was saying like, I don't know, we keep talking about feminism and blah, 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 and sometimes it's boring. And I asked him, what do you think? How do you choose the clothes you are wearing the next day? And he said, I consider if I have a meeting, if I have something formal or informal, or it's cold, it's warm. And I told him, so I consider if I have to take the bus, if I have to use public transportation, if I have to get back home late at night alone. So that's something that should not guide my choice for clothes. You know, I should consider if I have to be formal, informal, if it's warm, if it's cold. not if someone is going to touch me, you know? So that's why I say I cannot forget for 1 minute I'm a woman. So what I would say is that we cannot forget for 1 minute we are a woman. So we have to think, we have to keep remembering that as also something good. So because of a woman, I'm doing that. Because of a woman, I can do that. Because of a woman, because I'm a woman, I can choose doing that or not doing that. So keeping our autonomy, keeping our choices very alive, you know, very bright and very shiny. So then we keep remembering that we can choose, that we do have a choice. And I mean, oh, sorry. And that's it. I think that's it.
Why would you be sorry?
No, my cell phone just almost fell.
Ah, no, I didn't know. I was just like, why is she saying she's sorry?
No, because my here, right.
um,
So that's it.
yeah, I think that you touching something that it's about privilege, right? That's for the males that are listening to us. If you can say, I mean, for anyone who has privilege, right? If you can say no to something, you have privilege. If you need to
Yeah.
rethink or think twice about something, that's the case. You don't have privilege. In Brazil, as Gabriela said, we have many of these social problems, and we need to reflect every day, like about the privileges that we have and how we are going to deal that with these situations. Sometimes you can open doors to others, like you can help others, you can build bridges, or you can just like connect someone with like an opportunity, or you can raise your voice to help the others to speak, like, hey, this person needs to talk, let's this person talk. And it's more
Yes.
about the intention and the actions that you have that is going to help others too. So it's important to listen, but also keep in mind that you can open doors to others too. I don't know, Gabriela, I really like this conversation. I learned it so much. The Elas por Elas and the idea of just listen to others, learning, and also sharing their stories is a really cool thing. And I guess you're kind of living a dream, right, of being a journalist, and also to be living on this new type of media that empowers you to empower others. How do you feel about this?
Um, that's something that keeps me waking up, you know. I had a very hard time last year with my mental health. I had a depression. I'm still treating it. And I think what kept me going was thinking that I had a very important space to tell stories I wanted to tell. And I mean, I don't know if it's living a dream, because it's not very easy to do everything by yourself. So sometimes it's very exhausting. But I do think I'm very privileged, not because my life is like it is, but also because I have this space that I believe it's very important. And I don't know, I enjoy doing that. You know, that's something that sometimes I'm very tired, but when I listen to the episode or when I record an interview, I leave the interview very happy. My eyes are like shining, you know?
Energized
Yeah, totally.
by the stories that you listen to, right?
Yes, yes. They give me energy,
Um,
life
I'm
energy.
yeah, I guess it's a boost on your energy, like helps you to keep going and to keep doing things like this. It's, as you said, it's not easy, especially doing one big project by itself. Um, Before we go, there is one question though that I was kind of curious, and it's kind of related to the very first lines in the description of this session, which is about the nobody let goes anyone's hands. Which that was something that I was talking to Glaucia. So Elas por Elas cover image
The logo, right?
has, yeah, the logo. There are still people holding hands. Is
Two
that a
women.
reason for that? Like, did you pick a particular story, or is it the one that I'm thinking it is? Like, nobody let's do this, face this together. Is it like this?
Yeah, it's the idea is that, the concept is that, is like, let's try to walk together. And if you listen to today's episode, you see that we talk about we are not the same. And we have to consider that we are not the same. But that doesn't mean we have to walk alone. So we have to consider that sometimes we can be together to face the same things, and sometimes we can be alone to face our own demands, and that's okay. But being together is a way of making things last longer, making things stronger, and making changes. Sometimes you cannot change things by yourself, so being together is a way of trying to make that happen.
All right. This was really fun. I wish Glaucia was with us today. I'm just saying that, like, Glaucia, we miss you. She's okay,
Yes, we
but
do.
she would be here with us in the backstage. But thank you so much, Gabriela, for being here today. Thank you, Glaucia, for connecting both of us, and you're willing to be here and share your story with our community. I don't know if you can see the comments, but I guess we have many Brazilians watching today. I would say obrigado and obrigada, I guess. That's thank you. I don't know if just to say thank you everybody for being here today with us. Before we finish the event, there are two things though. One is we always share this survey in the end of the events, so it's a way to improve all the events that we do through the reactor. Um, I'm adding here the link, but it's basically you just need to go to aka.ms/reactor/survey. Once you open the form, it's going to ask you a code. The code of this event is 13116 or 13111 And yeah, I mean, what I can say, just can say like, thank you so much for being here with us. And do you have any final message that you would like to share before we finish the live streaming, or say thank you to anyone?
Yeah, I just want to thank you, the reactor community, you and Glaucia especially. I was very honored with the invitation, so I thank you very much for inviting me. It was really an honor to be here, and I would like to thank everybody that came and that watched, that commented. Thank you very much.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the day. Hope to see you in another Reactor event. If you're following this series, have fun. There are so many other interesting events. If you're from Brazil and you're watching this, we're going to have like a Brazilian version of it. It's going to start this week on Thursday. So yeah, thank you so much, everybody. See you next time. Bye-bye.